How are you guys doing? Today is Thursday, October 7th, 2021. I'm James Sims, and for this episode of The Elite, I'm going to do an individual profile on Trent Alexander-Arnold. The elite English right back for Liverpool turns 23 today, and my intent with this episode of The Elite is to point out the accolades, the achievements, and what Trent Alexander-Arnold has been able to accomplish in his career from the moment he first stepped foot on the pitch for Liverpool and for England up to where he is right now. He's 23, and he's not. At this point, not many soccer players will be trusted with as many responsibilities as Trent Alexander-Arnold is for one of the most complete and secure clubs in all of soccer. I think I don't even want to say it's a matter of time before people actually recognize, because I think a lot of people do recognize Trent Alexander-Arnold's ability to pass, to defend, to stay in front of his defender. And at the same time, like he's just a very crucial component to that Liverpool offense. Because, I mean, the whole point of being a right back is being able to defend some of the best wings that the world throws at you. And at the same time, he is expected to contribute in a high-powered scoring offense that is currently at the moment sitting at, or just looking at where they're sitting just 1 point behind Chelsea in the table. So they are a very good team this year, and they are competing in Champions League as well. The fact that Arnold has been competing at such a high level pretty consistently should give you a hint that this man is here to stay for a very long time. So just to give some background, he was raised up in the Liverpool system. He was born in 1998. He would sign with the Liverpool youth system when he was in 2004 when he was 6 years old. He would eventually stay with the Liverpool system with the youth team until 2016, until he was promoted in the 2016-17 season. In that Liverpool season, he would start 2 of the 7 matchups in a season in which Liverpool would finish with the 4th best record in the Premier League. This was the last season in which Philippe Coutinho would lead the season in scoring. Taking another look at, he was also able to competing with the Premier League 2 in the U23 division. But in the 7 matches he played, he would make sure that Liverpool only conceded 2 goals in those matchups, and they would go on to finish with a couple of clean sheets on the season, as Liverpool was starting to kind of turn things around. Following the 2016-2017 season, Liverpool would go on to get rid of Coutinho and then bring in I'm not sure if they got rid of Coutinho this summer, but they would go on to sign Mohamed Salah. And Salah would be very big for the team. He would go on to lead the team in scoring in 2017-2018. But going on into Trent Alexander's first full season with Liverpool, ever since being promoted in his age 17 season. In his age 18 season, he would go on to start 18 of the 19 games he would play in a season where Liverpool would finish with the 4th best record in the Premier League again. This time they would finish as runners-up in the Champions League, as that was the closest they got to a trophy this year. That was the year that they had gotten all the way to the final, and they would go on to lose versus Real Madrid, as Real Madrid would finish their Atletico dynasty. But in the Premier League itself, Alexander-Arnold would be a contributing member to a goal and an assist in the 19 games he played. And not to mention that on the defensive side of the ball, on the 19 matches he played in the Prem, Liverpool conceded 15 goals, which is less goals than matches played. And Liverpool would finish with 9 clean sheets in the 19 matchups that Trent Alexander-Arnold played. In their Champions League run, which saw them make it roughly to the very end and would see them rim out at the very end, he would go on to finish with 2 goals. In his very first Champions League matchup when they made it to the finals, he finished with a goal and an assist in the 10 matchups he played, as Liverpool would make it to the very end but finish just short. And for his amazing contributions at Liverpool in just his second season as an 18-year-old, Trent Alexander-Arnold, as a teenager, was called up to make his senior debut with England in 2018. He would also go on to be the 4th teenager to start a match for England in the World Cup tournament in the 2018 World Cup. And looking at how England fared at the World Cup itself, they would go on to make it out of their group stage versus Tunisia, Panama, and Belgium, losing to Belgium. They would make it to the round of 16, where they would end up beating, or they would draw with Colombia and then winning on, or they would end up winning this matchup, making it to the next round. They would end up beating Sweden 2-0 in the quarterfinal, and then they would end up losing to Croatia in extra time. They would also end up losing to Belgium in the third place playoff game. But of course, Trent Alexander-Arnold would prove very vital in those matchups as well. In this one matchup he played, he did end up, or I guess they did end up conceding a goal, but I believe the matchup he played in was more than likely one of the games that they had won. But regardless, with this, or following his appearance in the World Cup matchup, he would go on to come back to Liverpool for what will be his third season there. And in 2018-19, he was officially named a full-time starter for the club. And in his age 19 season, he would start 27 of the 29 matches he would play for a Liverpool team that would go on to finish as runners-up in the Premier League. But they would go on to win the Champions League in the tournament in which they had finished as the runners-up the year before. And this would be a season in which they would take home a lot of the hardware. First, in the regular season itself, Trent Alexander-Arnold finished with 1 goal and he finished with 12 assists. In his age 19, age 20 season, he will go on to finish with his very first season in the Premier League with double-digit assists, which, considering he's a defender, first of all, is a very tough feat to accomplish. In the 29 matchups he played, Liverpool would go on to concede 14 goals in those matches, as they finished with 16 clean sheets, the first time he would finish with double-digit Premier League clean sheets. Once they made it to the Champions League and the 11 matchups that Trent Alexander-Arnold himself would play in the Champions League, he would go on to finish with 2 assists over that 11-game span. So this man was continuing to put on a good amount of assists for the Liverpool team. And at the conclusion of the year, like I said, they would go on to take home the gold. And addition to winning the Champions League, they would go on to win the UEFA Super Cup for 2019. And they would go on to win the FIFA Club World Cup for 2020, just to give a sense of how that offseason went. Of course, the UEFA Super Cup means that they would have them face off against the winners of Europa League, and they won. And they would go on to face off again in the FIFA Club World Cup for the continental club champions of every other continent. So following that, that would lead to the 4 trophies that Trent Alexander-Arnold now holds in his case, as they said that would be 3 of the trophies, as this would lead into Trent Alexander-Arnold's 4th season as a member of the Liverpool team. He would go on to start 35 of the 38 matches he played in 2020 in a season where Liverpool would finish first and finish winning the Premier League. They would end up losing. They were runners-up in the Community Shield, but following their FIFA Club World Cup and Super Cup, the Premier League was the title that they've been looking for this entire time, as the last time Liverpool had won the Premier League was 1990, so that was their first their first Premier League title in 30 years. In the 2020 season, which was heavily delayed due to the COVID virus, or to the coronavirus, many people were unaware as to whether the season would finish, and Liverpool was out to a incredible lead by the time the season finished. But at the end, they did go on to finish the season. In the Premier League season itself, Alexander-Arnold would finish with 4 goals, the most Premier League goals he's ever put together in a season. He also did so alongside 13 assists, which is the most assists he's ever put together in a year. He would help to make sure that the team allowed only 31 conceded goals in the 38 matches he played. They finished with 15 clean sheets on the season, which would be the second time he finished with double-digit clean sheets as a defender. In the Champions League, Liverpool would find themselves getting eliminated from the round of 16 that year. And in the 7 matchups that he played for Liverpool, he will go on to allow 6 goals in the 7 matches he played, as they would finish with 1 clean sheet. In the 2019-20 Champions League, he would finish with an assist as well within that span. But of course, following the season in which they finished just short in Champions League, but they would go on to win the Premier League, this would lead into the most recent full season that Liverpool has played. In Trent Alexander's last full season with Liverpool, which would go down as his 5th with the organization. In his age 21 season, he started 34 of the 36 matchups he played for a Liverpool team that would finish 3rd in the Premier League in a season where Manchester City would take the crown. The closest that Liverpool came to a crown was finishing as runners-up in the FA Community Shield, a title that would see them lose it to Arsenal, actually. But in the Premier League season itself, Trent Alexander-Arnold would finish with 2 goals and 7 assists to help Liverpool finish with the 3rd best record in all of England. And then in Champions League, Liverpool would end up falling in the round, or they would end up falling in the quarterfinal round, as in, just to give us, that is, of course, how that matchup fared, as they would eventually get knocked out by Real Madrid, who eventually got knocked out by the eventual winner, Chelsea. So that is, of course, where Liverpool's Champions League season finished this most recent year, as they did not come up with the trophy. But, of course, Alexander-Arnold would show that he was one of the league's best. And then, of course, following that last full season, this leads us into this current season, in which Trent Alexander-Arnold, of course, came in at 22 and now turns 23. Looking at what he's doing this season, starting with the Premier League. So far, he started all 5 of the matchups he's played in a Premier League season. That is watching Liverpool sit with the 2nd best record in the entire table. They sit 1 point behind Chelsea at the moment, as Liverpool is the only team in the Premier League that has not lost a game. They've drawn 3 of their games and won 4. That's why they are sitting where they are at the moment. But Liverpool has been playing incredibly well. Alexander-Arnold has already pitched into 2 assists this season, and thus far, just looking at the 2021-22 season, Liverpool's allowed 4 goals in the 5 matches he's played, but right now he's sitting on 3 clean sheets. In Champions League, he's only played 1 matchup, as looking into the Champions League standings, it looks as though Liverpool is still sitting in it very comfortably in that division as well. And then, not to mention, but following the 2021 season, he did compete with England at the Euros. And in the Euros, they would make it out of their group stage with Croatia and the Czech Republic, as Raheem Sterling would score both of their group stage goals in their first matchup against Croatia and their second versus the Czech Republic. They would end up beating Germany in the round of 16 and make it to the quarterfinals, where they beat Ukraine they beat them 4-0. They would end up beating Denmark in extra time in the semifinals 2-1, where they would make it to the finals versus Italy, and they would end up losing in extra time, or they would end up losing in penalties to Italy. That's, of course, how that matchup played. But, of course, that leads us to this season in which Arnold's played 5 games for a Liverpool team that's sitting virtually runners-up at this point. And just looking at where they sit in the Champions League table, thus far in the year, Liverpool is sitting, or at this moment, Liverpool is sitting on top of Group B, in the same group as Atletico Madrid, Porto, and Milan, in a very tough group. And, of course, Trent Alexander-Arnold is one of the constants that's keeping them there. I think that because Trent Alexander-Arnold is turning 23 and he's been able to put up this production, he's been able to put up this production this early, I have no doubt in my mind that he's going to end up here next year. But, of course, he's going to be here for the next half decade. I have no reason to doubt that the player that's shown that he's one of the best right backs in the world at 23 has any signs of slowing down anytime soon, and I can't wait to see what he does with this Premier League squad moving forward. I want to thank the Pro Soccer Reference websites, Footy Stats. I want to thank the FIFA websites, the Premier League websites, and of course the Wikipedia articles that I use in order to access the stats and the data for this episode. And of course, I want to thank everyone for listening to all 15 minutes of this piece. I hope all is well, and once all of today's exhibitions and matchups are done, I will come back tomorrow on Friday, October 8th for another episode of The Elite. So until then, thanks for listening to this piece. I hope all is well, and peace out. I'll catch you with more tomorrow.